We've worked with finding inverses before. We're going to look at finding inverses of logarithms today, but let's first just remember how to find the inverse of something. The inverse is when the input and the output or the domain and the range switch. So when you're trying to come up with an equation, you switch your x and your y, and then you solve for the y value to get your new equation. So for number one, switch x and y, we're going to subtract that 4 over. So x minus 4 equals y minus 2 squared. And then to undo that squared power, we take the square root. So we've got the square root of x minus 4 equals now just y minus 2. And we would add the 2 over, not to the 4, that what you had you just have, but now plus 2 equals y, and we're going to make this y to the negative first to note that it's the inverse. So we switch our x and y, and we solve for y. Same thing we're going to do over with number 2. So we're going to make this x equals 5th root of y minus 3 minus 2. So same idea, we'll add that 2 over. Make this x plus 2 equals the 5th root of y minus 3. So on the other side, to undo the power, we took the root. To undo a root, we need to raise it to the equivalent power. So we're going to raise both sides to the 5th power. And we're not going to physically multiply out x plus 2 together 5 times. We're just going to leave this as x plus 2 to the 5th equals now just what's left under that root, so y minus 3. The last step is going to be to add that 3 to the other side, and you now have y by itself, but we're going to note that this is the inverse equation, not the original, by putting that negative 1 power. So when we're working with exponential problems and logarithms, so we just did 2 equations. Well, say your equation was the inverse of y equals, so you're trying to find the inverse of y equals x squared. Well, what would be the inverse of y equals 2 to the x? So to solve for the inverse for y equals 2 to the x, we're going to end up with a logarithm. So what happens is something with an exponent with base 2 now becomes a log base 2. So the inverse would actually be log base 2 of x. So to solve for y, we would convert the exponential to logarithmic form, and therefore our logarithms are really inverses of these exponential equations. If we start with an exponential equation, or if we start with a logarithmic equation, the inverse would be exponential.